and gentlemen, we are here down at Venice Beach. We got some of the finest performers are gonna be jumping in your face.
In the late 1800s, a rich East Coast tobacco heir named Abbot Kinney skipped college to spend his teens traveling the world. Returning home through San Francisco, his train was delayed by snow, so he decided to seek California. When he was shown the saltwater marshes south of Santa Monica, like a crazed Don Quixote, he declared, "They're just like the canals I saw in Italy." He just needed to dig them out a bit and hire a few gondoliers. He did just that and surrounded his new canal system with ballrooms, roller coasters, and a horse racing track. He built mansions along the banks and filled the waters with gondolas and rowboats. He held concerts and art exhibits. It was the first city in America built solely for fun, and he called it Venice of America. By 1910, hundreds of thousands took the red car trolley from downtown LA to play on the beach and gamble in the casinos at night. Kinney died in 1920 and the world moved on. During the Depression, the government had the canals filled in to provide jobs. Essentially, all of Kinney's canal system was demolished. When I was young, I always wondered why Grand Boulevard was so stupidly wide. Then I learned it was once full of water, Kinney's version of Italy's Grand Canal. Even though Abbot Kinney's fantasy city is gone, what remains is that, unlike any city, was built solely for the purpose of fun. It was the original fun zone. During the Depression, the workers hired to fill in the canals went on strike, and the few narrow canals we know today were left, filled with the rancid water pouring in from what is now Marina del Rey. In the 50s, someone got the bright idea they could bring it all back and build Pacific Ocean Park on one of the remaining piers. A whole lot of fun while it lasted. It closed within 10 years. Venice became a gang-infested backwater where if you could handle the stench, you could rent a bungalow on a canal for $40 a month. The triangle-shaped neighborhood bordered by Pacific Avenue, Venice Boulevard, and West Washington Boulevard, a street we now call Abbot Kinney, was the turf of the shoreline Crips and known as the dreaded Triangle Streets. When I was a kid, you didn't go into the Triangle Streets. While Venice was a no-go zone through the 50s, it became heaven on earth to the hippies, beat artists, and surfers of the 1960s. The dilapidated warehouses between Pacific Avenue and the beach became the art studios of Walter Hopp's Ferris Gallery gang. Even the collapsing POP Pier turned out to be a mecca for surfing. When I was in high school, it was the best break south of Malibu. Clean right sliders that began with a drop into the pier, bottom turn out through the pylons. Muscle Beach, which was originally next to the Santa Monica Pier, launched the national health nut craze. In the 70s, new fat rubber wheels replaced the rickety steel jobs, making skateboarding serious fun. Abandoned houses with a swimming pool became a new gang turf for surfers like the Dogtown crew. Venice was cool, Venice was fun again. By 2000, you weren't cool if you didn't know Venice was cool. Word spread, and Silicon Valley, always on the prowl for the next big thing, had to be here. Google bought the old Chai Day building, and soon YouTube, Snapchat, and the rest followed. Then the editors of GQ magazine declared Abbot Kinney Boulevard the coolest block in America, which many locals would say immediately made it the least coolest. Real estate prices skyrocketed. But after 120 years, don't count Venice out. There's a reason people are flocking here right now. Venice Beach continues to remain true to Abbot Kinney's original vision as a city founded for one purpose: fun.
Hustle Beach, baby. Skate it up.
My name is Jeff Ho, and this is my studio. This is the Zephyr studio. This is one of my team boards. It's an 8-inch, and it was designed for, park skating. This is like a pool board right here. It's a hand-painted one, and I made this one probably, a couple months ago. But this is a newer design of a park board. This is an ad that I did for Surfer magazine, probably in the early, in the mid 70s. There's Jay Adams, and I think, that's Peggy Oki, and that's Stacy Peralta, and that's Paul Constantino. And I think I used to have this hanging in the surf shop on Main Street, before they made it a coffee shop. And this is at the Del Mar contest in 1975. That's me, that's Peggy Oki, that's Winslow, that's Jay, that's Shogo, that's Tony, that's Filane, and that's Kent, and some other spectators. And we're looking at the freestyle area right now. And you can see Peggy, she's just like yelling. And I'm just going like, ah!
My family's been here over 100 years. My grandfather got here. He came from Lebanon and landed in Little Syria in New York and then made his way across the country and became friends with Abbot Kinney, who was just digging the canals, and he had just purchased this land. He was turning Venice into basically an amusement park. It wasn't a city per se, it really was a place where people would come and enjoy the rides and the entertainment. There were nightclubs and roller coasters. Right from the beginning, Venice was a party town. My grandfather was the first police chief in Venice, and that was in 1911. He ran into a little trouble because in 1911, if you were from Lebanon, you were considered Oriental. And if you were Oriental, you couldn't own property, you couldn't vote, you had virtually no right. He sued the government of the United States. It went to the Supreme Court, and basically his argument was, if I'm Oriental, then so is Jesus, because I was born in a town 200 miles from Bethlehem. So immediately everyone from the Middle East became white.
So what we're looking down here is a street that absolutely makes no sense at how wide it is, and this is Grand Boulevard. But it's called Grand Boulevard because this is the original Grand Canal of Abbot Kinney's Venice system. This was the main stretch. So you can get a sense of how wide and how many boats could have gone on this thing. So we're standing in the center of the circle outside of Hamasushi. The circle was originally the lagoon of Abbot Kinney. There were stadium seating all around it, and this is where they had all kinds of water shows, and all the canals fed into this one location. If you come around, you can see Grand Canals feeding into it. What is currently Venice Way was another canal system going off the other way. And once the whole thing closed down, where the old bathhouse used to be, became the post office, which is directly in front of me. More recently, the post office was sold to the producer Joel Silver, and it hasn't opened yet. It's now just covered with whatever fencing or something, but that's eventually going to be his new studio. It's being built in the area. So obviously the area's gone through many, many generations of transition. And then right after Joel Silver, you can see the classic Venice sign, which is right there on Windward, and a lot of the old structures are still in that location.
Because I will not be here in this barn home long, and because I can see into your empty Buddhist soul, and because you cannot reach me on the telephone, let me tell you that the bar is closed in Bobo tonight, but the shed is still wide open on Market Street. Who'd want to go there, I wonder? Laura, maybe? I will just stay here alone or stay home in Cull and do what I must do to survive. Mac Adams, if you guys had shit for guts, I couldn't even smell it. Grrrr. The St. Mark's.
He's just talking to me because of my grandfather being the police chief down here.
Oh, good.
Whenever somebody,
1911?
1911, whenever somebody broke the law down here, he'd take them back to the jailhouse, which was a chicken coop, and he'd take out his billy club and he'd smash their hands.
Really?
He'd smash their hands and say, "Don't come back to Venice."
Just to learn their lesson there, huh?
And that was a lesson to be learned, yep. Try that today, and I think there might be problems.
Because we're all being swept away inside the psycho-cybernetic socio.
By the time I came along, my family had migrated up to Santa Monica, and as soon as I could, I came back to Venice. This is where the action was. There was an art scene here in the early 70s for sure, and And artists could live for cheap in these old storefronts, and I was living for cheap down here. But then it wasn't long after that, you know, by the time the rollerbladers came along, the rents started to go up, and I ended up moving downtown in 1977. And already by then, Venice had sort of outpriced the artists.
Hunting them in swoops. I've got Hand and I, and Tongue to Praise, and Julian Priester on the record player, and they all influence the game plans. One wants to stay alive a lot more days like this, even if it is foggy. So I don't want to be the body of that dead man. I'll just tear up the game plans actually, and the car is available, and the red characters say, serve the people, serve them until they learn to serve themselves. And the music and art will have to survive into the hands and hearts of dudes and punks who will be endlessly accused.
Behind me here is a classic example of the studios that existed in the 1960s during the whole Ferris Gallery era that were between Pacific, which is to my left, and the ocean to my right. These buildings were nothing to rent back in the late 50s and early 60s, so all the beat artists came to Venice and rented all these buildings. Every single one you're looking at right now is all Snapchat now. Everything behind me and around me is all now either owned or rented by Snapchat. Directly behind me here to the right is where Tony Bill's old 72 Market Street was located, which was the classic kind of art restaurant of the 1970s and 1980s. The building to the left of that, Tony Bill's restaurant. Every other building down that row, every other building on the other side of me now are all Snapchat. They've taken over this entire block, and that's what the current Market Street scene looks like in Venice.
This is a photo of me right here. John Steele took this photo, and it was on ESPN. This was shot Hurricane Marie in 2014, and that was like one of the biggest swells that we've had. And I'm hoping, at Malibu. So this was like inside at the end of the wave. This was in Juice magazine. This was shot last year, 2015, on Hurricane Dolores. It was the first swell that we had, first one of the south swells that we had last year. This is another board that I did. It's kind of a retro board from the 70s. It's a single key. This is a poster that I did with Christine Nichols, and the show was the board, and it shows in the background here. This is my shaping room door, and this is another glassing room up in Pupukea. This is a painting I did. I love painting. Yeah, I love it. This one was made in 1974. Color's still pretty good. And this is the kind of like gun shape. This is a rounded pin. This is kind of a rounded pin gun. And this is kind of one of the stock shapes that we did back in the 70s, that I did back in the 70s. It's I color laminated this, and this is a resin pin line, really thin resin pin line. And then I airbrushed the top here. And then, glassed it and glossed it. What I did was I shaped this board, glassed it, painted it, and glossed it, and put the pin lines on it.
I'll take away your every woe. I'll come to you nice and slow. Oh, we'll watch the candles glow. Come on, and let it flow. Oh, let it flow. There's no other way to say it than to say say hello to the man in the moon. He's an old friend I'd like you to meet. There's no other way to say it but to say I'm sweet. We turn off the telephone and stay right here at home. Draw the shades so the neighbors leave us alone. Leave us alone. But let me take your coat and let me take your hat, madame.
Behind me here was the original parking lot, and it's still a parking lot for POP Pier and the whole Pacific Ocean Park, which closed in the late 1960s, and the surf spot was retained because the pier wasn't destroyed until it was a fire in 1975. And so the surf spot was actually right about where I'm pointing, and the way the pier was structured, it formed a long pier, then a middle-sized pier, then a narrower pier, and you surfed outside the middle pier into the pier, literally under the pylons, under the pier, and then turned out, and then the rest of the break was outside of the shortest pier. And there is not a single landmark left here. There's no way for anybody to even know that this was POP Pier and this was where a huge amusement park once was. Behind me is a classic example of Venice in transition. This building originally was the old Chiat Day advertising agency building back in the 80s. A beautiful piece of architecture designed by Frank Gehry with a binoculars entry that was designed by Klaus Oldenburg. More recently, about 2 years ago, this entire block was bought by Google, so now is the entrance of the new Venice Google facility.
We'll say hello to the man in the moon. He's an old friend I'd like you to meet. By the time I was born, my family had gotten out of Venice because Venice was in a decline. After Los Angeles took Venice over, for some reason as a city, it was neglected, ignored, it started going downhill. It was dangerous, yeah, but you know, there were also half-naked people on their bicycles and muscle builders and artists and street musicians, and it was exciting. It was our own Coney Island in a way. I remember seeing the Doors play on the beach in Venice. That was pretty exciting. Surf music is great, and by the way, surf music, Dick Dale was a Lebanese guy, so there's sort of a connection there, for me anyway. It's an indigenous sound that came out of a culture that was here, and it's real. There were hits, yes, but really, they're just punks, you know, they were just kids that had that identified so strongly with their culture that it made a sound to them, it had a look to them. Well, my daddy liked cars, and I do too. We consider every house just we two.
To me, it's always been multicultural. I can't remember a time where the boardwalk wasn't an array of people, ethnically, economically, spiritually. It's always been a mingling of everyone. Because anyone who comes to LA, they're going to want to go to the beach. The ocean calls to us. It just does. It's our mother. All people, we come from the ocean.
Drive with me, you grab a bite. We can eat it in the car if you like. On the run, we'll get it done in the sun or tonight. Nighttime is the right time to park.
No question that the art scene in Venice is an important part of LA's history, and a lot of great art came out of Venice in the 60s especially, and in the 70s, but by the end of the 70s, the Venice art scene had sort of become the establishment. I mean, Venice had gone through an economic shift, and there was now nice restaurants in Venice.
Where to go, had no control.
Well, it was more ordinary then. It was just a little beach town. Nobody could afford in any other places in LA. So they moved to Venice, which was the cheapest property values around. Walter Hopp sort of discovered all of us through Craig Kaufman. was a fellow student of mine at UCLA. And he put together this group of artists at a gallery called the Ferris Gallery. And he and a guy named Jim Newman were driving across the country. And they hit an old man that walked across the street in the middle of the night and killed him. His name was Ferris. So they named the gallery after this guy named Ferris. So Venice all evolved out of these various guys that had no money, that lived in little shacks.
We can sit around for hours, just we two, and talk cars, beep beep, coming through.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are here down at Venice Beach. We got some of the finest performers are gonna be jumping in your face. I want to hear a countdown. When we get to 1, I want to give you a what. We're gonna get started right now. 500. 499. Yeah.
America, you won't know your own power till the bald eagle, your totem, returns to the marshes and coastlands where it issues from to fish. America, I got a new thought on you last night. I saw it all illuminated, and in the moonlight, I saw the nation passive. And in place of the laundromats, I saw...
Ace Gallery was down here in the mid-'70s, and they really amped up the art community down here. And then LA Louvre opened up, and then all the fine restaurants followed, and gentrification occurs. Just like it's happening right now down in Boyle Heights. The galleries are opening up, and then the restaurants follow, and then the rents go up, and then artists have to go find someplace else.
2 Lebanese boys in broken twilight, half in Arab.
Because Venice was pretty scary in the early 70s. There was, there was a lot of the Mexican gang stuff was going on here, and the surfers were a tough group. I mean, surfers were punks. A lot of them didn't go to school. They surfed all day. I love those kids, man. And I wasn't a surfer. I tried, but I just couldn't stand up on the board. But in every other way, I'm a beach kid, to the bone. Spend every day of my summers in the ocean, body surfing, getting scraped up. And knowing the surfers, I went to school with them, and they were tough guys. You didn't fuck around with surfers. And when the greasers would come in from the valley, that's what they call them, the greasers, man, it was, stabbing time. There'd be big fights down at the beach. It's pretty scary stuff.
The checkerboard light over sky roof. Same electric light south follows this train. Apocalypse prophesied.
People would go to Santa Monica to retire and, breathe the ocean air. Venice always had a much more dangerous edge. My family left Venice because it was getting scary and going downhill. And Santa Monica was on its way up, right before World War II and so on. I knew that this was the place where the artists were. From the 50s, it was where the beatniks hung out and painters and so on. But by the 70s, LA was a pretty small art town prior to, I always say it was the Olympics that brought art to LA. But, the people who were active and making art and exciting the system, they were all living in Venice. you know, I have to admit, you know, they were the establishment when I was young, and I rebelled against those artists. I ended up being friends with them over the years, but really at the time, I wanted to break away from whatever it was those guys were doing. And I say guys because in the early days of LA art, women were practically not allowed. It was a very macho art scene, as opposed to New York, which was not macho. LA was macho from the Ferris Gallery on. Even before that, Lorcer Feidelson, those hard-edged classicists, they were all womanizing son of a guns.
4 days. For minutes, it's louder than the quacking mallard harbingers of the great autumnal pulse, then it's gone. America, I got a new thought on you last night. It must have felt like this at the fall of Rome, with the stench of victory still in their ears. You just wanted to get as far away from it as you could, but the sorrow slipping away, the fury and the hatred gathering in the shallows and gliding across the channel. I studied the Arundo, Donax, and the Willow, those ancient enemies, invader and invaded, as they battle in the lights fading, and try to counter the violence with my silence.
Here's an ad right here in the Juice magazine. This is like, you know, what happens is I've been working with these guys for 17 years and didn't realize it. And this is that photo over there, that ad, you know, and we're making a poster of it. But this is like Hurricane Dolores, and it says July 2015 is when Hurricane Dolores was. That's when that photo was shot. And this one here is also the Juice magazine. It was dedicated. The cover was dedicated to Shogo when he passed. You know, he was a good friend. You know, along with you know, when he was a young kid, he was you know, one of the team riders and stuff that, you know, came in off the cuff, I'm gonna say. But this is a shot from that John Steele did, and this is the Big Wednesday board, and this was shot you know, on Big Wednesday on August 27th, 2014. This is the big surfing book by the Tashin people, and this is me. This is one of Craig Stesick's famous photos, and you know, he shot that of me. And this is Jay Adams, that's Tony Alva, and that's Stacy Peralta. These were my team riders. This is an old shot of me at the POP Pier when it was standing, when you could see all the pilings before it burned down. And this had to have been in, like, I want to say 73 or something like that, you know. This is just kind of one of the smaller waves on the inside. I think the tide was coming up, and you can see it's kind of, there's like a little section that's going to come. But, you know, this is, I'm riding a little 6'9". I think 6'9" is what I'm riding, right there. Hey, this is a photo of me in my shaping room. I think it got to be right around like 2010 or something like that. And Babette shot that photo. We're showing the bottom of Alan Sarlo's board I designed. I've been building boards. Alan Sarlo's been one of my team riders since, you know, he was just a young guy, you know, back in the 70s and stuff. But this is like shows like the drastic concaves that I'm putting in. This is a quad thruster. This is a design of a pocket skateboard that I was doing, and it has like a clear grip on it, like that, you know. It's got like the rocker in it is like the old boards with the low center of gravity and stuff. This is the Wave Killer painting, you know, from POP. It's like a POP Wave Killer painting. And this is a shot right here in front of Jack's at the Beach over there on the north side of POP, the T's, you know. Where's this? Jack's at the Beach, right in front of Jack's at the Beach, north side of POP Pier. You know, back in, like, I want to say 73. This is my award that I won It's from, you know, the International Surfboard Builders. And I won this award in, you know, 2015. And it's like the Surfboard Builders Oscars. And I'm really, really proud to be part of the Surfboard Builders of the world. You know, there's a subculture of surfing and skating. We have a surfing culture and what have you. But then there's a subculture within that subculture of guys who build and manufacture surfboards. And that's like an elite group of people. This is a shot of me right here. I'm riding Rocky Point, and this is that board that I was riding at Big Wednesday. But you know, and here's this copy. Here's a shot of that board right there. You know what I'm stoked about is making surfboards and fucking riding them and riding the boards. When I see the shots like this, you know, I go like, damn, where are the waves at? I want to go surfing.
Biggest arms in the world. Oh, Bill Pettis. Sorry, yeah.
Wish I had $1 million. I bought myself a new car, one that would go real fast. Guess I didn't get too far. If I had $1 million, I'd buy all the days combined. Stop them sliding in.
Beat Cuppy's ass! I beat Mayweather's ass! And Pacquiao! And Khan Khan! And everybody except Ronda Rousey. You gotta focus,
Standing on Cabrillo, which as you can see again is a ridiculously wide street, and this was one of the canals. On either side we have Windward, which was a canal, and at this location on Market was actually a canal too. So behind me is one of the original, the original homes. It was an island. You get a sense of how old the houses were if you look at the house here. It looks like something you might see in San Francisco. That house was probably built somewhere around 1910 when the original canal system was up and running.
Surrounded with a great big fence so that nobody would know. If I had $1 million, I'd turn my castle into a cave where I take the gist of this humanness, and I claim that I've been saved, yeah, yeah.
If you look at this street, it is nothing more than a two-lane street. It makes absolutely zero sense. Each lane would hold a big wheel rig in a residential neighborhood. The width of the street is probably about 75 feet. So how do you explain it again? This was one of the canals. This was all water. Everything we're standing on was just a big water system, and gondolas went up and down this street back 100 years ago. So from the waterway here on Cabrillo, if you look down this alley, you can see the modern world of Abbot Kinney high fashion. And there's an interesting bar here that's been here since the 60s that fortunately still remains. It's a light blue structure ahead of me here, and it's called Rooster Fish. It's a gay bar And back in its day, it was a very aggressively gay bar. And in fact, they did not hanker to lesbians even coming into this bar. It was a male gay bar, still a gay bar. And during the period when gays were first establishing their rights in the United States in the 1960s, when Greenwich Village was a big scene, when the Castro District in San Francisco was a big scene, Roosterfish was one of the main establishments, like West Hollywood, for gay people to come and feel comfortable and kind of exercise their rights. It was almost had a political bent to it. We're staying on Abbot Kinney, which most people recognize as now the great international street that it has become. You didn't need to go back more than 7-8 years ago when these were all just boarded up warehouses. There was only a handful of things here. Literally seems like yesterday that the restaurant across the street from me that's now called Feed used to be a little shop called Stroh's Market that a husband and wife ran. Great little sandwich shop that I used to come to with my wife after skating, and it literally seems like just a couple years ago that's all that was here, and every one of the things you're seeing down this road were just a bunch of boarded up warehouses. This all happened overnight. It was absolutely crazy. This particular restaurant to me is one of the classic examples of the great irony of Venice in the modern era. This used to be this classic little southern barbecue, just beaten up little shack with smoke kind of pouring out of it, and they sold really good, pulled pork barbecue sandwiches. And they lost their lease, and in came a new hipster, modern, cleaned up southern pulled pork barbecue sandwich place. So Chop Daddy's, whatever that means, is a replacement to what was really a kind of a neat little restaurant doing exactly the same food, only in a hipster style.
I built this river, not with my hands, but with my imagination. Now it's Super Bowl Sunday, and the Eagles are underdogs to the Patriots. So practice the patience that you learned from the sedge, unchanged for millennia, because it made a deal with the wading birds to write their sacred names with cloudbursts on moving water. I built this river, not with my dreams, but with my drama, though now I feel it ebbing, drying up, and cracking like a mudman's mask. I built this river with my karma, just so I would have a park bench to sit on when I had no
The good
other
thing
place
in the
to go.
70s going on down here was there was a hot tub culture right before the roller skaters, and people would get together. There was very few sexually transmitted diseases in those days, so you get in the hot tub and you just fucked whoever you could, whoever'd let you, and pretty much anybody let you fuck them here. And then, of course, that was the height of the sex revolution. And Venice, has always just been on the forefront of anything going on that's changing or different. So, we had that sexual freedom until the 80s came along, and AIDS kind of put the brakes on for promiscuity. Promiscuity became deadly. Well, a lot's changed about marijuana, that's for sure. Well, it used to be scary as hell to get high because you knew you were breaking the law. And the crime itself was pretty serious in the 70s and so on. I mean, you could really get in trouble for pot. And I don't think you can really much anymore. First of all, it went to, if you're carrying less than an ounce, it's okay, it's a fine. And now all the dispensaries popping up with the flimsiest excuses to get a prescription. And that's okay.
As a desperate poet in a desolate time, I can only express my love for you in simple declarative sentences, and the metaphors will have to take care of themselves. I see you skating down the strand in Hermosa Beach with polyurethane sparks flying off of your heels, and know that as long as there are strawberry blondes and poets to praise them, this world will be worth saving.
Well, the great Shay J's here. This has been here since I don't know when, but I know it was a favorite place for Sinatra to hang. It's a place you go to get steak and whiskey, and there's sawdust on the floor. And, you know, they've been developing this whole area here. It's just multi-gazillion-dollar property here, and they're developing it all around, but Shay J's survived. It's become a landmark, I think. This is where Dennis Wilson had dinner the night he died. Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys. The shell they have here is from the Pacific Ocean Park, which is the POP Pier, which is a rival to Disneyland in the 60s. It was a great amusement park built out over the ocean. And at the entranceway, they had this very modernistic thing with all these giant shells, and that's one of the original shells. It's painted pearlescent, the same way it was when it was at POP.
My skateboard. This is a Z16, 16-inch wheelbase. I got like some going chargers on it. I got some 70 millimeter soybean wheels on it. Motherfucker rolls.
When I talk to you, we got a good thing going. You understand?
So it was relatively, you know, uncrowded back in like the 60s, and then, you know, in the 70s it was a lot of fun, you know, because people just wouldn't want to come down to Venice and Santa Monica, especially Venice, you know. It was like, I could go to the breakwater, you know, and I could spend the whole day there, and I could park right by the oil derrick and not see another person on the beach. There's all kinds of madness going on the boardwalk, like it is now, you know. There's just like shops and people running around on the boardwalk and stuff. All right, now, like the whole place, as far as like, you know, as far as like, you know, demographics. I mean, they changed West Washington to Abbot Kinney, the name of the street, so it's now called Abbot Kinney. And I've watched that street go from like, you know, residential kind of like homes and some small businesses, one story, to the most yuppie thing. It's like, you know, it's like the Beverly Hills of the beach. Maybe I'm blowing the spots out. You know, I shouldn't be saying any of this shit about the surf. You know, like I don't know. You know, I just don't want to encourage a whole lot of people to come down here. Oh God, wait a minute. like, you know, happy about the skate park is I worked with a lot of the guys, you know, since the 90s, you know, to try and get a skate park in Venice. And it's one of the things that Rosenthal did, you know, that was so cool, was to get some skate parks built in LA. And Santa Monica, Venice area was, you know, basically the epicenter for, you know, modern day skating as we know it today. And it took, you know, till the 2000s when we got our first skate park in Santa Monica at 14th and Olympic. I mean, that was really, really good. And then afterwards we got the Coastal Commission to allow, and the city to allow the skate park down in Venice. Dogtown in Venice? I don't know, that's a difficult question too, because basically I think Dogtown geographically is an area, you know, that encompasses Santa Monica, Ocean Park, and Venice. That's a traditional way to put it. But I think that Dogtown is more of, instead of it being a place, I think it's more a state of mind, and it's more of what our culture is and what it says about us as surfers and skaters. Did surfing influence skating, or did skating influence surfing? Well, both of them influenced each other within different time periods. Now, like in present time, you see skating moves being emulated in surfing, influencing surfing. And it's really kind of a cool thing to have, you know, watched the two things go, you know, back and forth throughout all the years.
Dad never gave him any slack. One last scene and fade to went on to be captain. He got a bunch of medals for all of his action. He told me, son, you can be a hero without a gun. So he put down his badge. In 1963, he quit with the big bad dog act. He had to move on. He had to move on, and he couldn't look back.
That's where the old Pacific Ocean Park Pier, POP, used to be, and it was an incredible place. And it rivaled Disneyland in its day. And eventually, you know, it lost its shine and it started to go downhill, and the city vacated the place and eventually burned it down. It was blamed on arson, but the fact is, the city burned it down because it was too costly to demolish it the proper way. At the time, my dad had the security system on the abandoned pier. It was his men that were guarding it and keeping people from sleeping there and so on. And they called him up one night and said, keep your men away. And the next day the pier was all burnt into the ocean. The official story, of course, is it was arson, but the fact is the city burned it down to save some money.
Oh, I don't know. It's just a bunch of places going on now. The property values have all tripled. It's sort of boring to me.
For sure.